Our speaker is Jennifer Roberts Stutzriem, and she is a senior global consultant with the Impact Group. She is going to be talking about conducting a job search from the recruiter's perspective. So she says recruiting today has changed dramatically from just 5 years ago. Everything is done via artificial intelligence and applicant tracking systems. In this session, she's going to talk about how she personally would conduct her own job search using today's technology and why face-to-face and online networking is essential to a successful search. She is a senior global consultant with the Impact Group, where she serves on the leadership development, relocation, and outplacement teams. As an executive coach and senior consultant, she has worked with clients in the United States, Canada, Europe, and Asia. On the leadership development side, she works with clients and their staff on developing managers into more effective leaders, organizational effectiveness, individual career development, talent management strategies, and succession planning. On the relocation side, she works with employees, their spouses, and immediate family members who have been provided relocation coaching and career coaching by their sponsoring employer. On the outplacement career transition side, how many sides does this woman have? She's octagonal. I can't wait to have her come up here. She works with individuals who are going through company-sponsored programs to assist them creating a clear path to their next career move. She is on the board of directors and advisory board for several nonprofits. She is actively involved in community outreach, has a passion for creating opportunities for veterans and, get this, workers age 55 and over. Jennifer. There she is.
I love Texas, but Texas does not love me. I am allergic. I've been here about 8.5 years, and I thought by now I would be over this whole allergy kick, and it just seems to get worse and worse and worse. Is anyone else with me on that? I noticed some of you nodding your heads. I do allergy drops. I've tried bee pollen. I've tried everything under the sun. The drops work the best. Yes, ma'am. I do that every day. Hopefully it won't come running down my face while I'm talking right now. I can't. I get sick. But thank you very much. It does help a lot. Okay. So thanks for having me today. As Miss Kathy shared, my background is really in training and organizational effectiveness. I have been very blessed throughout my career to be both on the recruiting side as well as the hiring side and then on the coaching side. So early on in my career, I started out doing a lot of recruiting for an organization some of you may be familiar with, New Horizons Computer Learning Centers. I was on their global operations team, so I would travel all around the world. I would recruit their staff, I would train them, I would get them up and running, and then I would move on. I stayed with them for many years, both as an employee and as a contract consultant. After leaving there, I've had a lot of different opportunities to work with companies, both as a recruiter, doing a lot of executive recruiting and high-level IT recruiting, and then really for the last 18 plus years, I've been focusing a lot of my time on career coaching. So as Kathy said, working with individuals who are in transition, help you come up with your strategy and plan to figure out what it is that you want to do next, and most importantly, how to get there. So today's session is really designed, maybe, for me to talk to you in just about a couple of different steps. I loved it. I was listening to Kathy talk, and she was telling you everything that's in my presentation. So for all of the newbies in the room, you're going to get to hear this again for the second time. For those of you who've been here for a while, you may hear this for a third or fourth time, but you know what? That's okay. Why is that okay? Exactly. Some of you are still looking for jobs. Some of you just come here because you love everyone. I know some of you are in that situation because I've seen you here before. But, you know, as we go through today, we're really just going to talk about understanding how do you create your marketing collateral? Because as someone who's been both an employee and an independent consultant, I have to sell myself all the time. I have to actually go out and try to land recruiting contracts to supplement my coaching work. Because even though, as you saw, I'm with Impact Group, I'm one of our project consultants. So I'm full-time when they need me full-time. And then I'm part-time when they don't have enough work to keep us busy in a full-time capacity. So that's where I will go out and I will work with some of my colleagues in the U.S. on positions in IT, finance, leadership, marketing, and sales. Now, I'm not currently working on any positions, but that doesn't mean that I don't know about other positions that are open. So we're going to talk about how important your marketing collateral is to your search. We're also going to talk about your personal brand. I cannot express enough. How many of you love to talk about yourselves? All right, good. There's a couple of hands that go up. I like that. How many of you are petrified to talk about yourselves? Okay. Our job today, for those of you who love it, you're going to help these folks who are a little bit more afraid learn how to become more confident. I cannot encourage you enough to join Toastmasters. I know Kathy brought it up that they've got a meeting after this today, and I really do encourage you to do it. I did it very early in my career. I had to pay a lot of dollars back then because I said, well, you know, let's see, okay, like, a lot. So we're going to talk about your brand and how you articulate that. We're also going to talk about a game plan. If you aren't familiar with a job search action plan, you really need to be. If you don't have one, you're only hurting yourself. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that too. We're going to talk about networking. What you are doing today, you're networking. Hopefully you're not just coming here and sitting and just kind of looking around the room. Go up and introduce yourself to someone you don't know. We're going to talk a lot about that today as well. We're going to go and we're going to talk about what happens if I see this job, I love it, but I'm not 100%, I'm just not going to apply. Anybody ever feel like that? Okay, I'm going to tell you how to handle that situation. And then lastly, we're just going to talk about how important it is to really regroup and repeat. So you really want to take a look and see like what you did well, if you need to recalibrate or do something differently, and then just repeat. So when we think of marketing collateral, I know it's up there on the board. My slide transitions aren't working. It was going to come flying in and look beautiful. What's marketing collateral? What's your marketing collateral? Resume? Business cards? LinkedIn? What else? Any kind of social media, as long as you're using it appropriately. Emails can actually be your marketing collateral, absolutely. Yeah, if you have presentations, videos, content, things like that. I know that one of the projects that Shannon needs help with is someone who can do Wix. Those are just website design. So if you have any other website design, you should really go see her to help with that Wix project because you could do it really easily. But so when you think about it, it's really important that your marketing collateral is not too generic. As we mentioned at the very beginning, everything today is done through applicant tracking systems. The technology, how many techies do I have in the room? Okay, quite a few. How many of you have ever done any kind of development work for a job board? Anyone in the room? I wish the Indeed folks were here because they would be standing up going like this to everything I'm about ready to say. But it's really interesting because everything today is done through those applicant tracking systems when you're applying online. It's all done with keyword searches. If you've never done one before, I really encourage you to do word clouds. Has anyone ever heard of word clouds? That's kind of what it looks like. That's a word cloud there. But you can go to sites like WordSift, so word and sifting flour, wordsift.org. You can go to Wordle, WORDLE.net. And there's another one called tagcrowd.com, TAGCROWD.com. What those are word clouds. So when you're looking for a position or title, and it has to be one, you can't put like 10 different kinds of positions in there. But if you're looking for a project manager role, let's say, how many project managers did we have in the room? Quite a few, right? So you're going to go out to Indeed, which is a great job board. It's an aggregator site. You're going to go to LinkedIn. You're going to pull down a minimum of 5 to 10 job descriptions. You're going to cut and paste all of that content into these word clouds. And then what's going to happen is it's going to spit out a cloud that looks just like this one. And the words that are really big and jump off of the page were the ones that were consistent in several of those job ads. That absolutely, positively needs to be one of your keywords. You're going to see some that are a little bit bigger than others. That means they were consistently showing in some of the ads. And then you're going to see some kind in the background. You're going to see some of the generic words like teamwork and customer service and time management. Those are kind of generic ones. So if you're looking for a particular type of position, you want to make sure that you are going through and you are identifying the keywords that are specific to the type of role that you're looking for, and then also those keywords that are more generalized. For those of you who are a little bit more old school like me, I like to actually print the ads out and read through them very carefully line by line, and I will highlight when I see those repetitive words. Because in my mind, that helps me with something we're going to talk about again in a little bit, and that's actually our presentation. I know that those words that are consistently used in the ads that pop up big in my word cloud are going to be something that I want to talk about when I'm doing that presentation. Now, I know we don't have anyone here from LinkedIn, but I want to let you know JobVite does their annual survey of all of us who are recruiters, hiring managers, HR professionals. They just released the findings not too long ago. 94% of, I see some heads nodding, 94% of recruiters recruit directly from LinkedIn. So they either go there to what's called source candidates, where they're going to go in and put in that keyword search, and they're going to generate a list of folks who match that skill set. Or if you apply to jobs, they're actually going to go there to make sure that you have a good online marketing presence, that you know how to present yourself well in the business setting. They're also going to check your other social media. We could spend hours talking about social media. That is not today's session. But just make sure that whatever you post on social media, whatever you're tagged in on social media, if you have some crazy family and friends who like to tag you in things that are inappropriate, you need to manage that carefully, because recruiters will look at that. Yes, ma'am.
So where are you suggesting to put a word cloud?
So you're going to actually do the word cloud, and then you're going to use those keywords that pop up in the cloud in your resume. It's going to be in your resume. It's going to be in your LinkedIn profile. It's also going to be in your 30-second commercial or your self-presentation. Some of you may do what's called a networking brief, and that's going to also have those keywords there. So I know this session isn't on LinkedIn. It happens to be one of my passions for Impact Group. I teach our LinkedIn classes for the university where I teach. I teach the LinkedIn classes for students, but some of the things that are just really important to take away in terms of LinkedIn and your online marketing presence: keywords are essential. All-star status is essential, because if you're an all-star, you can have the free account and you'll still come up high in the search rankings, and you don't necessarily have to pay for that upgrade. Okay? So if you walk through what LinkedIn has you do when you're setting up your account, it'll tell you all of the things that you need. And if you want to send me an email, I'll gladly send you that list. So if anyone wants to reach out to me afterwards, but you can also Google how to be a LinkedIn All-Star, and it'll pull it right up for you. Okay? Growing your network is essential. Yes, sir?
Yeah, real quick question on that. So when I changed my last position to Zenday,
It took you to expert.
All-Star.
It moved you to expert. Yeah.
So what do you suggest for people that are in that situation?
Does anyone want to suggest what to do there? Darla?
Put a placeholder in, so you can put what you do as your current job role, and then it is a placeholder. It doesn't necessarily, you can write consultants.
And you can also put the employer as in transition.
Well, so what you would rather do, though, versus putting in transition, and I knew this was going to open up a lot, because, again, this is something I'm very passionate about. You don't want to do that. You want to put the type of job title or the position that you want in your title, and then where a company name would typically go, you can either put in industries that you're interested in. You can put in skills, which I heard someone mention on this side. You could put in some of the key skills you have in that company field. Or you could put a tagline. So I have kind of a silly, fun tagline on mine. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, it says, "My favorite thing to do is teach grown-ups how to play nice in the sandbox." I could put something like that in there just to draw attention. And then, as Darla said, in the job description section, you're actually going to put what you're up to. If you're getting any new training or certification, if you are working on some projects for Leap to Success, if you are volunteering anywhere else. And you can also put in that job description exactly what Jill said, kind of like what you're looking for. So you can say you're looking for project manager roles in information technology. You are open to traveling up to 50%. I'm just making this up. You're also willing to relocate to North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. Feel free to connect with me. You can add that as well. So again, Kathy does, I think, some great training on LinkedIn as well, don't you, Kathy?
Today, 2 to 4.
There you go. It's the LinkedIn session, so I'm not going to say any more. But growing your network on LinkedIn is really important. And then also commenting, sharing other people's posts, all of that stuff brings you up higher in the search rankings. You also have the ability to turn on notifications to let recruiters know you're open, which again will be covered in this afternoon session. Did you have a question?
Well, is there a way on the work cloud, what that's doing for us is conforming us to them? Is there a way to reverse that so you can have something that artificial intelligence reaches out, looks at all the, and then pulls in a word cloud that matches me?
JobScan.io does that a little bit, jobscan.io, but again, you need to match to what employers are looking for. They don't care what you're looking for. I don't mean that in a negative way, but when you're in job search mode, you have to go the extra mile to make sure that your marketing collateral matches to what they need. Okay. The next part, I know some of you are new, and I know it's scary to talk in front of groups. So when I asked how many of you like to talk, I think maybe 5 hands went up. Most of you are kind of like, I don't want to talk about myself. I always ask that too with interviewing. How many of you love to interview? Like it's your favorite thing to do? No? I guess maybe because I've been doing it for so long, I actually enjoy being on the interviewee side as much as the interviewer side, because I know in interviewing, it's my job to interview them just as much as it is their job to interview me. But the most important thing that you need to do when you are doing your self-introduction, your 30-second commercial, what else is it called? Elevator pitch. What else? Branding statement, okay? You need to very clearly and succinctly, I can't say that word very well, I practiced that all day yesterday, succinctly be able to articulate who you are, what you do really well, and what you would like to do next. Because if you can do that, you'll be amazed at how many complete strangers will help you. But they need to know how they can help you. And so one of the most frustrating things to me is I love to help people. I'm a helper by nature. I'm a nurturer by nature. And I'll say, people say, oh, I got laid off. And I say, well, what do you do? Let's see. I was with X company for about 15 years and had a lot of different jobs. And how many of you are like, right? You don't want that. You want to be able to come out and say, I'm a project manager with expertise in nonprofits and for-profit companies. Most recently, I was in Belize, where I was able to have a dramatic impact on the culture and education and helping kids realize that their future is closer than what they ever thought before. Now what I'm looking for is an opportunity to work here locally in Austin with companies that do outreach into other countries where I can go and replicate what I did in Belize. I was fascinated by that. I hope you don't mind that I picked yours. But again, you really, and that was just me, and I know, I've been doing this for a long time, so it's easier for it to flow from me. But just realize that you can do the same thing. Just talk about who you are, what you do really well, and what you would like to do next. How many of you have a dog? Okay. How many of you have a cat? Okay. How many of you have a turtle? How many of you have plants? They are all fabulous listeners. Don't be afraid to practice this. I have a little pug. We have a 4.5-month-old pug, and so anytime you say anything, she's like, So she's a little hard to talk to because she's distracting. But really practice it. And I'd love to ask anyone, I know some of you have been coming to this for a while, is anyone willing to do your 30-second commercial? Oh, yes, ma'am. Now stand up so we can hear you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Elwanda Winham. I am an IT tech support specialist. I took a non-technical team from scratch, and I trained them to be technical support analysts that supported over thousands of employees. During that time, I was able to increase our customer satisfaction, as well as increasing our first contact resolution. See, I'm nervous.
That's all right. It's
What I would
beautiful.
like to do now is continue to manage in a technical role, but I would like to develop myself to manage more higher caliber technical teams.
Okay.
So that's what I'm looking for right now.
Very good. And tell me your first name again. Elwanda. I'm so proud of her for doing that. Y'all, you know how hard that is to stand up in a group of strangers and do that. Now, what she did was called the 90-second commercial because she talked a little bit more. She gave a couple of accomplishments and talked about the things that she did. So the difference between your 30-second commercial is it's a little bit shorter and sweet. Your 90-second commercial, you add in something quantifiable or qualifiable, as we say. So either a dollar amount, a percentage, a number, an increase in customer satisfaction. If you were able to cut the launch time from a project from 21 days down to 7. Those are the things that you should not only be saying verbally when you're networking, but those go into your cover letter as well. They also go into your LinkedIn profile. And they also go into your resume. So everything that we're talking about today all ties in together into your marketing collateral and your brands. Any questions on this one? I know this is a little difficult for some of us, and there are some people in this room that are very good at doing this, and so don't be afraid to use the resources you have here. They will help you fine-tune it. Yes, ma'am.
Would you recommend the 30-second or the 90, or is there like a different circumstance that you use one or the other, or?
Okay. So the question is, would we recommend the 30-second or the 90-second, or maybe are there different circumstances where you would use one over the other? What do you think? Yes.
So if you're standing in an elevator with somebody, or if you just meet somebody at a cocktail party or a networking event, probably want to start with your 30-second. If they ask for more information, then you can sort of parse out more.
Absolutely. Did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of times at networking events, when you have the chance and they give you 90 seconds to stand up, they specifically give you 90 seconds to stand up and introduce yourself, like at a B&I meeting or whatever.
Yes.
So,
For those of you who are not familiar with BNI, Business Networking International, correct? It's a small kind of invitation-only type group where there's only one representative from each kind of industry. It's a membership, but it's another good networking event. And as Kathy said, there's tons of great networking groups that you can go to. But that's going to be one of the things that we talk about in a little bit. You have to practice. Yes, ma'am.
One thing to do is just to be aware of the person you're talking to. When they start looking away, that's the end of your elevator pitch.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, in an interview, they often start with, tell me about yourself.
Exactly.
And that's where I think you can use a 90-second and should, and be very succinct.
And I will tell you in an interview, because I still interview a lot. As I said, right now I'm spending about 75% of my time working for Impact Group. The other 25% of my time is either working on other training and coaching projects or recruiting projects. I partner with an organization out of Georgia and help them do a lot of their searches for that South that's immediately around them. But I do my 30-second commercial because I want it to be a little bit more conversational. And so earlier when I said I'm a training and organizational effectiveness coach and my favorite thing to do is teach grown-ups how to play nice in the sandbox, I stop and I smile. What do you guys think about that? I can take it. What do you think? Cheesy? I can see some of you think it's cheesy. Okay.
What
Okay, playful, wonderful, memorable, I want to know more. Who's like, what the heck is a training and organizational effectiveness coach? Right? But are all of those, did you want to ask something?
I was just going to say, I like that idea of stopping and smiling, because I find I sometimes have verbal diarrhea when I'm in an interview, so
Yeah.
stop it now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I want to say, it's a little cheesy, but I want to know how you do that. So that's kind of.
Yeah. And that's it. So what I did is what I call my tagline. And it's part of my commercial. But I stop there and I do get that Cheshire Cat grin because I want to see the reaction, because no matter what the reaction is, I'm still going to talk about what I do next. But yours is the one I dream of. You know, oh really? Tell me how you do that. So a lot of times I'll get, oh man, we could have used you at my last company. Or I'll get, what are you talking about? Or somebody will say, I love it, tell me more. And so again, the reaction is what you're looking for, and that also helps you gauge whether you do the 30-second or whether you go into detail and do more. Okay. You heard me mention this in sort of that opening slide. It is really important to have a plan. You cannot execute on something if you don't have a plan. We've got a lot of project people here in the room that use project management software. You guys might just use timelines and checklists. But it's really important to have a plan, because if you don't, you will be stuck. How many of you have a plan for yourself? How many of you literally have written out your job search action plan? Talk to me about it. Talk to the room about it.
So I have, I've got a few things that, first of all, is I make sure that I do 2 applications a day. I find them if they're not coming, but I make sure I do 2 applications a day. I do social media presence. I allocate about an hour to social media every day that I'm doing something there that's either driving engagement or my professional my professional presentation. It could be actually either one. It's good to get engagement going too, even if it's on the personal level. I then spend about half an hour a day either doing something actually like creating content for posting on social media, or working towards something. I've been redoing my LinkedIn profile lately. And then I also have come to this every week and try to get to at least one other event every week.
Okay.
So,
And how are you finding your events?
off of the Kathy.
From Kathy's to-do list? Nothing wrong with that. That's why she's here. That's why this group is here.
To-do list and off of Austin Digital Jobs. And between those two, there's something good every week.
Okay, Eventbrite, meetup.com, Built in Austin, Tech Ranch, you can kind of follow what's going on down there. WeWork, Capital Factory. Yeah, all of those places have different types of events, and so that's really important, and I'm glad you said it, and you'll see we reinforce it again on another slide. You cannot just sit behind your computer. Who else has a job search action plan? Tell us what you do. Yes, sir.
Well, I've done Scrum Master work, and so I've basically taken an agile approach to it. And so I have my own personal weekly planning session where I lay out what are the important things to do, what am I going to accomplish, similar to Scott's, how many applications am I going to get out? Is it important for me to be getting applications out? I'm new to the area, so is it important for me to get to know people? What are the events going on? And so just trying to keep that going, and then a weekly check-in to say, how did I do this last week, and how does that then speak to what I need to be doing in the next week?
Yeah, and what he just said, and I can't read your name tag, is it Galen? Galen. It's really important. You guys have to hold yourselves accountable. We're going to talk about that too, and I love that there's a SWAT team here that can work with you to make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to be reaching your goals. But it's really important to give yourself action items, and it's really important to check your progress. And as Dalen said, with the Agile methodology, you just recalibrate and you go back the next week and do what you didn't get done last time. And I've got a question over here, and then I'll come to you.
I was just going to say, I've added very intentionally doing volunteer work 3 to 10 hours a week.
Okay.
Not only because it gets me out meeting people, but it just makes me feel good instead of if you're just staying home or even sometimes just going to networking events, it can get very depressing. So volunteering has very much helped my attitude, as well as it just stays and keeps me plugged into big events in Austin.
I cannot second the volunteering enough. I think sometimes we get into woe is me mode and we don't want to leave the house and we sit in our pajamas. And did you know that Jerry Springer is still on TV? I kid you not. So, no Jerry Springer, no bonbons. You actually have to get out and do things, and volunteering is a great way. Did you want to add something else?
I was also going to add on something. I now actually reply to every message I get on LinkedIn, even the ones that are kind of spammy.
Okay.
Because just as a good practice and habit of how do I reply to this courteously and et cetera, and being open to the opportunity, it takes 30 seconds to make it some kind of polite reply that's open. And the other thing is I'm also doing is every day I'm also doing 2 one-on-one outreaches, emails to old friends and old contacts. Saying, hey, this is what I'm up to. What are you up to? And an invitation to get on the phone with them and catch up.
Yeah. Coffee, tea, ice cream. Tips treats are amazing. Oh, Tips treats. I don't know. I like Tips treats. You could, yeah.
So you gotta really,
Depends on what you're looking for. Yeah, it really does depend on what you're looking for. It can also get expensive if you're always the one buying the coffee or buying lunch. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, and I want to reiterate what Kathy said, anything that you do that is job search related counts for unemployment. So for Texas Workforce Commission, they make it look like they want you to apply. Is it 5 or 6? I think 5 jobs each week. But if you really read it, so I'm hearing 5, I'm hearing 6.
If you're in Livingston County, it's 6.
Okay, and if you're in Travis, it's 5? Go figure. But yeah, so anything like this counts as a job search related activity. Getting on LinkedIn and finding people counts as an activity. Applying to jobs, of course, it counts as an activity. But going out and networking, volunteering, all of that stuff counts. So it's all part of your plan. You need to have a multi-pronged approach to your job search plan. And I love the SWAT team, and we're going to talk about accountability partners in just a minute as well. Any other questions on the job search action plan or advice? I'd really love to hear advice, things that have worked well for you, for our newcomers to the group.
So a couple things. I'm actually very impressed with Scott. He does like 2 applications a day and reaches out to 2 people a day, and I'm like, holy crap. But, because my goal is, I don't put in as many applications a week because I'm trying to make sure that I'm networking myself in as a referral. So my goal really is to start, reaching out to some referral opportunities and that. But also, strangely enough, in the career place I'm in, the age I'm in, a lot of my old colleagues are getting laid off from their second jobs or their first jobs after IBM. So I'm doing a lot more networking there and networking into other people.
Yeah. Darla's a master networker. Get to know her well. Give her presents. She's really good. Yes. We'll go you, and then I've got 2 more.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
How do you manage doing a stopgap job that brings something in just so that you're meeting bills and whatnot if you didn't qualify for unemployment? And energy management of doing everything else. I get massively overwhelmed. I'm feeling everything wrong.
Yeah.
With all that I need to do, and I'm like, there isn't time in the day to do it all. And I don't know how to prioritize at this point because I'm just so exhausted.
Sure. Are you able to set aside maybe 2 hours in the morning before you start your other fill-in-the-gap job? Okay. Then after dinner, maybe after you eat, try to do it in the evening. I will tell you that morning job search activities are more fruitful. Another report just came out. It wasn't JobVite. I'm trying to remember who it was. But they were saying, applying to jobs first thing Monday morning, applying to jobs instantly when they come out now, which is all changed because it didn't used to be that way. It makes a big impact on getting through to the recruiters because the applicant tracking system hasn't screened you out yet. So I would say if there's a way to talk with someone here, get a mentor, talk to them and see if they can kind of help you maybe negotiate so that you can figure out some time, because the fill-in-the-gap job will consume you. It will. I know that for sure. It will consume you, and then all of a sudden you think, I'm going to do it later. And then you come home and you eat and you're exhausted. One of the things when I was in job search, and it's been a while since I've been in an official job search, make sure that you're going out for a walk in the evening. Sorry, I hit the microphone. If you're going to do your search in the evening, go take a brisk walk first to get that energy up, because otherwise you'll sit there and you'll click, 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 click. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I could do that, I could do that. I could be a rocket scientist, I don't need that degree, and then you start getting silly with yourself and you don't do yourself favor. So I would say find someone here who you can kind of talk through your challenges and let them come and give you some solutions. That SWAT team sounds amazing to help with something like that, I think. Yeah, okay, and then we had one over here and one back here. Who wants to go next? Okay.
I have a marketing plan that was similar to your previous slide, right? What do I want to do? What am I interested in? What companies maybe I want to work for? And I've given that to friends so they can keep that in mind when other positions maybe at their company come open or they're meeting with somebody. And for me, I live alone, so getting out of the house is so important. I've been spending a lot of time at all the different libraries in Austin. I bring my computer, I got free Wi-Fi. I don't have to worry about, I have to buy a $5 coffee every 2 hours. No one's going to kick me out. It's a fantastic resource.
Yeah, very good. And I like the idea of the marketing plan. And then there's also something that you can do that's called a networking brief. That's a one-page overview, kind of like a marketing plan. And it's a little bit jazzy. And if you guys connect with me, I can send you a copy of one that I like. But it allows you to have a one-pager to send out to friends and networking connections so that if they happen to be out and about or they meet someone, they'll remember you because it is kind of a catchy little piece versus, hey, here's my resume, oftentimes too long resume. Can you circulate it for me? A networking brief is a lot better for that. Okay, and I saw some hands up over here.
And I just wanted to comment about volunteering. Aside from that, I think it's important to stay involved with your professional associations. And what I have found is that staying involved with them, I can volunteer for them at a conference.
Yes.
At a conference for half price. So just even, or free, just for 2 hours of sitting in a registration booth, I get 2 days. And that does a couple things, keeps me engaged in the network, also starts to fill gaps that I have in my career, and keeps me up to date.
Good. And I want to make sure everybody heard that because she's a little bit softer speaking. But volunteering for the associations that you belong to, your professional associations, a lot of times they have events and conferences and meetings, and she's saying she'll volunteer, and then she either gets in free or gets a reduced fee if there's a big event coming up. So she'll give 2 hours to have 2 days of access, and that's a really smart thing to do. And I know for some of you, there might be some big association meetings coming up or industry meetings coming up. Believe it or not, if you contact the organizers of the events and you let them know that you were recently laid off, sometimes they will comp you passes to it, meaning complimentary passes. Or they'll give you a student rate or a discounted rate to attend. I've had a lot of people go to big industry events. There's an energy one coming up in Houston. I'm working with a bunch of folks in Houston right now, and they're doing that. And then volunteering as well, and so they're like, okay, we're going to let you in for a third of the price. You just have to help us at one of the events throughout the 3 days. I saw a hand up over here.
I know you're under a lot of pressure to deliver 5 to 6, applicants a week, which is, I'm on the receiving end of that. Sometimes I can tell when people are just flinging resumes and applications at me.
Yeah.
So I know your time is limited, but if you see a job that looks like it's like a really, really good fit, target in on that and use some quality time to tell your story. And telling your story is not like, I knew I wanted to be an artist since I was 5 years old and I'm really good at cross-functional teams and I'd be a great fit for this job and I want to change the world. No, that's very generic. I get that all the time. Target in on the skill sets. Use the summary, the narrative to very closely align to the skill sets and spend quality time on that job and then spend less time on the other 5 jobs you just need to do to apply.
Yeah. And again, remember, it doesn't have to be 5 jobs. It's job search related activities. So as long as you're tracking what you're doing, this counts. Every one of the events you go to today that's part of this counts. They're separate events. That helps too.
So I know I didn't hear anybody bring it up, so I wanted to just say it. Kathy talks to the new people about watching Pam Otten, and I don't know if Pam's here.
today, Pam.
She's not.
So, in the YouTube video, if you haven't seen it, you've got to go watch the piece about Hunter, but really you want to zero in on where she talks about adding the chart, the T-chart to your resume or to some document that you're going to submit with your application, your 2 applications that you're doing. I started doing that right after I watched the video a few weeks ago, and I had an interview this week with a company, and he was hired to look for this position. His first comment to me was, I loved your chart at the back of your resume because it allowed me to zero in on how you qualify for this job. And so he's the one that highlighted it, and it's probably what got me through that tracking system and actually to a real interview. So those who haven't done that, I waited. I heard it from Kathy when I was sitting over here when I first came, and I've been coming for a couple months. And I waited, and I finally said, you know, I really need to go watch that. Do that first, because I think it can really help a lot of people. It's helped me.
Is that a video that's posted on the...
Yes, so go ahead, Kathy, where it's... Yeah.
No, I will. Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to explain it? You're welcome
that's fine.
to. Yeah. No, one of the things that if you ever have the opportunity to work with a career coach, you know, whether it's through an employer-sponsored program or whether it's someone you're working with as an individual, they should be encouraging you to do what's either called a T-letter or the bullet point chart. And what that is that is your way of doing exactly what, and I'm sorry, is it Scott? What Scott said on the resume. You need to very clearly, right up front, highlight those core competencies that you have that match to what he's looking for. Same thing with the cover letter. A lot of you may think, cover letters are no good. Well, if you write, I'm looking for a good job with a growing organization where my skills can make a difference and I can have a lifetime career, well, yeah, that's not helpful. But if you take the time to say, as the following comparison shows, my skill set matches your requirement. And so on one side, you can even list out exactly what they're looking for. You don't do the whole thing. You pick 3 to 5 things at most, because otherwise it's going to be 5 pages long. But you pick a few things and you put what they're looking for, and then you give a specific short challenge, action, result example right next to it that shows not only did you read the ad, but you took the time to show them why you're a good fit. And so it's really important if you are going to do a cover letter, do it right. Don't have a generic one that just goes out paragraph, 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 paragraph. They aren't going to read it. And as you said, you got a compliment, and you just started doing it?
It's probably been a few weeks.
Okay.
Now. Yeah, and I mean, mine is and this is from Pam's thing, I cut, and because it's what helps you get through the automation of the ATS. I cut and paste, cut and paste. The requirement, job requirement into the first column. And then I can free type how I meet that requirement, as you said, using examples and things. But I also do it in first person, different from the resume that's above it. And so I feel like I got to do a little bit more of a narrative and show a little bit more of my personality in that, and that was part of his compliment to that.
Right.
As he said, I got to know you a little bit more with that chart and how you feel you meet the requirements of the position. So.
And what's really nice with that, and then I'll let Darla add on too, this little
page. So I had a couple of quick questions here.
Okay.
So I just made it the 3rd page of my resume.
Okay.
And I've heard different people do different things, and
I would tell you to put it as your first page.
Yeah, I'll let others kind of throw that in there. For me, the purpose was to get through the ATS. For the recruiter, it was, hey, I could skip the resume, basically, and go to how do you meet this?
Yeah.
So it served multiple purposes there.
And it's really easy to do. It's very strategic and easy to do. Darla, you wanted to add something.
And so Jennifer was my outplacement coach when I left IBM at Bright Management, and when they showed that to us, it was in the cover letter to add the T-chart, and then to add the cover letter and resume all as one document when you submit it.
Yeah, and the reason why you create your cover letter and then you cut and paste your resume into it and you save it as your resume, because then at least they have to scan that beautifully formatted cover letter before they get to your resume. And you can ask recruiters, and I will tell you, I'm one of the very few recruiters that I know who actually reads the cover letter, and here's why. People pay to have their resumes professionally done. But then oftentimes they'll write their own cover letter. I want to see if the grammar matches. I want to see if they can explain their accomplishments as well as the resume does. So I can usually tell when someone's paid to have a professional resume versus someone who's done it themselves. So I always read cover letters. We did an enormous amount of research at Right Management and then Impact Group, where I'm spending 75% of my time now. And literally, only 25% of recruiters, and this was thousands of recruiters surveyed, said they actually read the cover letter, but 75% of hiring managers read them. Okay? So if you have the option to save it as one document and to save it in the resume file, do it that way, because then you're guaranteed somebody's going to look at it at some point. And we already have someone in the room who shared it worked. I know it worked for Darla. She got a lot of interviews because she took the time to do that T-letter format. Now, there were a couple other hands over here. And what I was going to say is this session that I'm doing today, I've only got an hour with you. I do it as a full-day session. So I'm trying to do highlights of things. But if there are more things, and Kathy and if Shannon are okay with coming back, I'll be happy to come back and do another topic another day. But I just want you to know that everything that we're talking about is not only from me as a recruiter telling you this is what I love to see, it's also from being on the hiring side and saying this is what I love to see. And only about 25% of candidates are actually doing any of this stuff. Yes, ma'am.
One other thing, when she was talking about grammar, if you don't have, I'm better at finding other people's errors than my own. If you don't have somebody to do that for you, there's a free version of Grammarly or a $99 a year paid version that's a little bit better, Grammarly.com. It does a really good job in double checking your grammar, making suggestions if you repeat the same word too much.
Yeah. And don't just trust Microsoft Word, because it is designed to give you the opposite. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed that, but with it'll put the apostrophe when it's not correct, or it'll have you put a plural when it's really supposed to be singular. So don't just trust those little green squiggly lines. You really do need to have someone else who's good at grammar actually look at it with you. Okay. Any other things on the plan? Any other questions? I'd like to move forward. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My only question is that I spend a lot of time in interview prep, which sounds like a good problem to have, but that's when I find out whether I'm a good fit or not. They say, "Oh, it's great to meet you, enjoy the interview, but we're not moving forward," and it means I have less time to do all the other stuff that I also should be doing. So I just wanted to.
Yeah. Honestly, guys, when you say you don't have time, I'm going to tell you it's an excuse. You can be mad at me if you want to. You have an hour a day. You have 1 hour a day. Break it into half-hour segments if you need to do 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. But you can find an hour out of your day to work on your plan and really work on your strategy, because otherwise, like you said, you're spending all of your time interviewing, and then when you don't get those jobs, I'm hoping that you're going back to them and asking if there's any feedback they're willing to provide. 90% of the time they won't, 10% of the time you'll get some, but that 10% is invaluable. Okay? But yeah, it's easy to say I don't have time. That's like me with exercising. How many of you are really good at exercising? How many of you know you need to be good at exercising? Okay, everybody's hand needs to go up for that one. I fall into the second category. I'm good for about 2 weeks, and then something happens, and then I don't exercise again for 2 months. Okay? I have no discipline. So I'm talking to you from someone who needs this strategy to find my jobs in between my consulting projects, because otherwise I would flounder. So I make time for it. And that is part of the SWOT and the accountability partner, which is something that I talk about coming up. So how do you network? What do you do? This side of the room is kind of quiet. Somebody over here tell me, what do you do to network?
I'm usually putting on events for my consulting thing and running new people that way, like getting people to expand my network, but sharing invites like that.
Okay, what kind of consulting do you do? Wine? Can I come? Please? Okay. All right. We'll put my name back up there. What else? So he puts on wine events that he uses for his consulting business and invites people to come. What else do you do to network?
Association Book Club.
Association Book Club, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, so UXPA, User Experience Professional Association, has a once-a-month meeting, and then every 2 months they have a book club, and they read a couple of chapters and get together and discuss. So it is cool because it's a chance to target specifically, you know, like, oh, I'm looking for a job, that you can show your expertise or skill, or make meaningful comments in the discussion that can have impact and impress people, and help make that relationship stronger in the future, that when there's something, hey, I remember that discussion with you, or I remember that comment you made.
That's really fun. I learned something today. I've not heard of an industry-specific kind of book club. I have book clubs with friends. You know, we have small groups at our church, but I've never heard of like an industry-specific one. That's a really neat idea.
We've done some really cool books. It's been really interesting to be able to just, again, carefully curate what you do. Right. But be able to throw that in there.
Just point out that networking is not only meeting new people, but also strengthening relationships with ongoing people. So I would say, I always suggest that you want to be in something that's ongoing, whether it's a Toastmasters Club or Rotary or Chamber of Commerce, something like that, that you meet the same people and strengthen those relationships, as well as going to events and meeting new people.
Yeah, very good.
I like going to, looking at where I want to go, security, found user groups, and going to them to learn what their speakers, learn what they're doing. Some of them you have to pay for, a lot of them are free, and they're throughout the month, and you can check those out. That way you're meeting people who potentially can give you the lead into either a company or a training that you need.
Okay. And you mentioned user groups. So he said he goes and looks for user groups in cybersecurity because that's something that he's interested in. How do you find those user groups? How do you find the groups? How do you find the user groups?
One I did find them through
Through here? All right. So you found a cybersecurity group through Launchpad.
But then OWASP is one. They do theirs at National Instruments. There's a couple other ones.
Did you find them on meetup.com? Did you find them on Eventbrite? Did you find them on Austin 360's website where you can go in and put in business events and then type in cybersecurity? On LinkedIn? Okay, good, good. User groups are fantastic.
Well, and don't miss an opportunity to be social. So if somebody invites you to an event, go. If we live in Texas, it's one of the only states.
You can use us, the book
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, but this is one of the only states that you can actually talk to the person in front of you in the grocery store line. At Starbucks, whatever. There's always opportunities, and you just never know where that opportunity is.
I'm actually going to add that because I have it in there while waiting in line. But it's true. Texans are friendly. Even transplants who aren't native Texans are still friendly. There is something so friendly about this state, and people will just strike up a conversation with you while you're waiting in the restaurant food line, while you're waiting in the grocery store line. But I think it's really important to get outside of that box and network in many different ways. Don't just come to one event and be like, oop, I did my networking for the week. I don't have to go to anything else. Look at all of the different options. So we've got the face-to-face coming to events like this. Social media. I love that you spend time on social media, either writing articles or just sharing other people's articles. There's a plethora. Like I could spend 8 hours a day looking at other people's posts on LinkedIn and resharing them. I found a couple of thought leaders that I like, and so they always post this beautiful stuff. Sometimes it makes me cry, but I will share what they posted. Or if I read a really interesting article from Indeed, they do some great stuff. LinkedIn themselves will do some things. There's one called The Muse. I like them. They're funny. I share some of their stuff as well. So you can reshare content and get that activity that I was talking about that brings you up higher in the search rankings on LinkedIn as well. Because again, LinkedIn is the #1 recruiting source today. 94% of recruiters and thousands of recruiters were surveyed for that. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I actually have a weird question related to that because it's something I've run into. I got a lot of recruiters calling me for the same job.
Yeah.
Looked out to reach out to some of them. I mean, like barraging me all day, like I can't get stuff done because they're all calling. It's like 5 recruiters for the same exact job in Iowa. Yeah. But one of the things I've run into too is some of the ones that recruit that way will go in and want you to send them your resume in a Word document And then I started reading reviews about them, and I've talked to a couple of people that had done that and been fired from the job once they got hired because the recruiter had changed the resume and submitted it to the company as a contract thing, and then it had blowback on the person applying, and so.
That is a rare occurrence, but it does happen. So what she was saying is she's being barraged by multiple recruiters for the same job. That means they're fishing. They don't actually have that job. They may do work with that client, or they may just want to do work with that client. So there are literally, I want to say typically it's more junior level recruiters, and it's also international recruiters who have just been paid to just source. That's what it's called when they reach out to you like that. And then what she was sharing is that she's heard stories where a recruiter has taken your Word document and actually edited some of the text to say that you had a skill set that you didn't have, and then those individuals were later terminated. That's really nasty, dirty business, but it may happen, so that's why I will always tell you to do it in a PDF file. However, there's free PDF converters where they can convert your PDF to a Word, but that's why you need to be very careful about the recruiters that you work with. You need to interview them just like they're interviewing you. The very first question you should ever ask a recruiter is, do you have the contract on this job? Well, we work with them all the time. That's not what I asked you. Do you have the contract on this job? Yes, sir.
I was told to ask that in the form of, are you the prime?
Okay, you could do that. So he said he was told to ask the question, are you the primary recruiter for this job? Yeah. But here's the thing, there's so many phishings going on out there, and I get them a lot too, because having been at a director level and above in some of my roles, I have people constantly saying, oh, well, we're working with this client and they have something coming up and I'd like to talk to you about it. And then I'm always like, oh, so do you have the contract with that client? Well, well, yeah, but do you have it for this specific job? Well, no. And I'm like, okay, well then when you get the contract for this specific job, please reach back out to me. I'd love to talk to you. I'm a little bit crass like that because I've been through so many fishing expeditions, and I'm 49 years old. I don't need to play with that anymore. I'm very secure in who I am, what I want to do next, the types of roles that I want to look for, and so I will actually be more pointed in my conversations with those recruiters. And as a recruiter, I know I can do it and get away with it.
I was just going to say, the exception to that, though, is when you get contracts. For example, I do contract work and Dell has contract work. I'll be contacted by 5 or 6 different companies. They don't have the contract. It's an open contract. Whoever finds the person finds it.
But if they tell you that it's an open contract, that they're bidding on an open contract, but you need to ask the question. So you're verifying that it's an open contract. So you are, in essence, asking the question, right?
I don't ask that, but it is.
You should.
Well, I know, because I know how they'll operate.
Yeah.
But
So what do you do in each situation? If they say they are the prime or they have the contract, then you just go ahead. If they say they don't, then you just say, contact me. I don't know what this open contract is. What would you do then? Are there other replies? What would you do for those replies?
It depends, and that's the thing. You can't give a standard answer for a theoretical type of a situation. You have to kind of look at each situation individually. So I would just say, ask them if they have the contract. If they say no, ask them if it's a client that they work with regularly, and they say yes. Ask them to talk to you first before they submit you for any positions, in case you're already talking to someone else. And then that way you're in a little bit more control of that situation. I will tell you, I worked on a humongous project in South Carolina. It's been about 10 years ago. And I was staffing the entire IT team for a brand new manufacturing facility that did the sleeves that go around hybrid batteries. And we had the exclusive contract, but there were other recruiters who were submitting candidates in for the jobs that we were recruiting on. And one of the CIO was so frustrated because he kept getting stuff that he didn't want, he would throw out candidates altogether. So that's a whole nother conversation that we can have about being careful about who you work with, limit the number of recruiters, make sure you control those reactions and the communication with them, and make sure that they talk to you before they submit you for anything. Okay. So networking, any chance you get. Okay. Now, I'm actually going to go on because I want to, how much more time do I have? About 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll get through it. We're almost done. I really cannot, I could spend a whole day talking about this slide. Do not just apply to ads online alone. Statistics show all of the big outsource, outplacement, career transition companies, Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Monster, Career Builder, all of them do these surveys. And they find out that only about 10% of active job seekers actually get their job by applying online. 10%. That's pretty abysmal if you think about it, right? 75% land their job through their networking efforts. So all this stuff that we're talking about networking, if that is my one piece of advice I can give you as a recruiter, network, network, network. Because you never know who might know someone who can introduce you to someone where you would like to work. And LinkedIn is really good for that. You can go into LinkedIn to see who you know who's a first level connection. You might find that you don't have any first level connections, but you've got a couple of level 2 connections. Then you look to see who the level 1 is that's connecting you, and you ask that person for an introduction. If you are polite in your approach, you'll be amazed at how many people want to help you that don't even know you. Now, if you hammer them, what's one of my most frustrating things on LinkedIn, someone will say, oh, I see we're in the same industry, let's connect. And I'll say, I'm happy to connect with you. But if you attempt to sell me something immediately, not only will I remove your connection, I will report you. Have a great day, smiley face. I'm so sick of that because a lot of times they want to sell me something, but I love salespeople, I'm married to one. Okay? So I have no problem that there's an etiquette, and y'all need to know the etiquette. But so if you have no connections on LinkedIn, and there's a company you really want to work for, you have exhausted all of your other, at church, at social events, at your kids' games. Hey, do you know anyone who works for Dell? I mean, everybody knows someone who works for Dell. But that, what we learned about that, though, if you don't know somebody in the right division at Dell, it doesn't matter if you know somebody who's a V or a C, you're not getting anywhere further unless it's somebody referring you in Dell's division. That I can tell you firsthand. But if you don't have the connections, then do a search for the company name plus human resources. You can also do, it's called a Boolean search string. You can put the quotation marks around a company name, the plus sign, and then human resources, or you can use HR. HM, I abbreviated for space sake, that's hiring manager. So if you know you want to work in finance, you could put Dell and CFO, just as an example. And then what you do is you can send them a connection request, but anyone you connect with, please customize it. Don't do it from your phone unless you know that there's actually a way on your phone, and I wish I should have done a screenshot of that. On your cell phone, you can actually go in and customize the request. You didn't used to be able to, but yeah, they changed that. But always customize it. Let them know how you know them, or if you have something in common, if you heard them speak at an event and you'd like to connect, if you read an article, but you've got 300 characters there, use it. Don't do a sales pitch. Just say, I see, that you're in an industry that I'd really like to learn more about. I would welcome the chance to connect with you. Thank you, and your name. But always customize that request. A lot of times, I won't accept if it's not customized. I'll still go out and look at the person's profile. That's what I tell all of you to do, too. When you get a connection request from someone, do a right click on their name, go out, look at their profile. Who cares if they saw that you looked at it? And see if they're really someone you want to connect with. If their profile's bare bones, they're probably not very active on LinkedIn. If they're from other countries and there's just some iffiness about it, I lived in Russia, so I have a few connections in Russia. I get connection requests from Russia all the time that are not appropriate in any way, shape, or form. So I look at those, just to make sure, okay? But only 10% from sitting on your computer or at the stoplight when you're stuck in traffic, which you shouldn't be doing, applying to jobs that way. Yes, sir.
If they don't have the little in button.
Oh, yeah, I was going to.
They don't know that you've seen their profile.
Okay. The other thing is if you go to someone's profile and the connect button is locked, The word more, ... is right next to that. If you click on that, you can still connect to them even if they're locked. I thought that's what you were going to say. Okay.
If you have a premium profile, normally that little icon will appear, but I tell it not to. Which is the best way to go?
Depends on what you want. It's completely up to you. There's no rhyme, there's no right or wrong way.
It affects recruiters because I had heard one recruiter say, well, if I see that you're a promoted applicant, then I just ignore that and go down to the ones that are not promoted.
But see, that's like if you talk to 15 different people, you can get 25 different opinions on resumes because some people have two. So it's like with recruiters, everybody has their own personal way of recruiting. Everyone has their own personal style. If one recruiter tells you something and you're like, oh, that's kind of fishy, reach out to other recruiters and say, hey, someone told me this, what do you think? Maybe get a consensus of. But if you have LinkedIn Premium, I would not hide that logo. I would show it. It shows you're paying for it, so you're investing in your social networking. You're investing in yourself. You all can turn on, there's a new app, it's not new, it's been out for about a year and a half, but you can let recruiters know you're open. If you go to your dashboard, and are they talking about that this afternoon?
No, go ahead.
Okay, like I don't want to go over it. But anyway, you can let recruiters know you're open, and if you are going to turn that on, fill out the little form that comes up. It's really important that you're specific about what you're open to. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Oh, go ahead.
Also on LinkedIn, for us who don't have the premium, if you find somebody you're connected in their association or in a group, you can still reach out to them. It doesn't count on your messages that you have for that particular month.
Yes. So if you belong to a group or association on LinkedIn, you can actually message those group members directly. You don't have to send a connection request. Yes, ma'am.
So I know when you do a search for a recruiter or recruiter or HR or whatever, but is there, without having them have the keyword on their profile, is there a way to find a hiring manager?
No, so typically you're just going to look at who you think would be the next highest level. Yeah, so if you're applying for a staff level position, you'd look for a finance manager or a finance director or a CFO or VP of finance. Yeah, and I'm sure that you could spend hours figuring out other ways to do creative searches on LinkedIn. What I always teach is sort of that high level, easiest way to do it. But yeah, you just would typically look for someone in that division, in that department, and then try to request a connection.
Yeah, and it's easier in smaller companies than large.
It is, yeah. It definitely is. I have a gentleman I'm working with now who's trying to connect with someone at Chubb. I had no idea how many hundreds of thousands of people work for Chubb. Yeah. The other thing too, and we could spend a whole lot of time on this. I don't have a lot of time to spend, but if you have at least 75% of what they're looking for, and you're not missing the most important thing, like your certified ethical hacker, if it's required that you have your certified ethical hacker and you don't know what that means, don't apply. But if you have at least 75% of what they're looking for, apply, because when we create the job descriptions, we create it for the fluffy unicorn. Okay, we create it for that mythical creature that may or may not exist. And so as long as you see that you've got the majority of the skills, when you're doing that awesome cover letter that you all now are going to be doing, you're going to focus on what you do have, and you are not going to mention what you don't have at all. You'll be surprised, you'll still get through. If it is something that's like a PhD in neuroscience, then of course you're not going to get through. But if you have at least 75%, your chances are pretty good. If you're 50%, 50-50 chance of getting through. So just sort of for this last one, I think it's just so important is there's no one perfect way to do this. What works for me may not work exactly the same for you. What works for Ferry may not work the same for Darla. So you have the ability to control your search. Take control of it. Do not be a victim of your layoff. Be a master of your future. Okay, I want you to control where you're going to go next. You've got amazing resources with this group. Use them. You've got other job seeker clubs that you can go to. You can work with career coaches and counselors as well. But you have to create a plan, and you have to do it. I actually used to say execute on it, but I don't like that word. You know, adjust where you need to. Keep coming here. Keep coming here. Come to all the free stuff they offer. It's great. They're here for you. They do it because they love to, not because they have to. You know, and most importantly, and I know for Shannon and for Kathy, come back and share your landing story. Come back and tell them the things that you did that worked really well, and let everyone celebrate that victory with you.